Alright, in this video, I'm going to go over what to do against the bishop f5 variation. So let's say here and here. So very similar to the outpost variation. Knight f3, e6, bishop d3. This is actually kind of a reverse London because they went d5 and they got the bishop out. So first things first, if take, computer likes pawn takes, but we're going to keep it normal and just go queen takes. And the things to kind of think about here are you're going to outpost and you can still rook lift. If they go c5, you just go c3. If c4, it's the same as late c4. Now you're trying to push e4, and you're happy if you get that in. And let's say, for example, nothing works. Kind of the way to develop after this, and it's good to know, is you can either bishop swing like this, or you can go b3, bishop b2. I'll just make a couple moves, like here, here, queen here, knight here. It turns into a little more of a slow-paced game, but we're fine here. We can go c4 eventually. We can rook lift, or we can try to go for e4. So that's what you want to do if they do this variation with take on d3. Now, a lot of people will go knight e4. And let me show you guys a very, very common mistake I see literally all the time. So here, this is normal. Now, if you watch the other video, you know we want to try to take on e4 when they take back with the pawn. But if we go knight t2 here, he has this line of fire. And there'll be a whole separate video for lines of fire. And basically, they can go knight takes c3 now. And after we take, they take here. They're up a pawn, and they have the two bishops. So we are not happy. So the way to avoid this, all you got to do first is go queen e2. I'm going to say this throughout a bunch of videos. Queen e2 is always a good move. If you're not sure what to do, go queen e2. It helps push e4. It helps connect the rooks. Very useful move. It protects the bishop too. Now, let's say they keep going, knight d2. If they take, you can even take here if you want. But take, trade everything, that's fine. And if they don't take, they say they castle. Now, once again, if they outpost on e4, we can take on e4, take, and knight g5, and we are just winning this pawn here. So we were happy here. Now, another question you guys might have is after bishop d3, let's say he goes bishop e7. Do we want to take this bishop? It looks like you're doubling his pawns, right? And he's got worse pawn structure. But the problem is he has an open file against his e-pawn, and it looks like you can blockade right now. But at some point, I would just make a couple moves to show you guys. Castle, castle. Let's say rook e8. We're just doing normal stuff. Let's say here. I'm making some random moves for sure. But at some point, he can evict this knight from e5 by going f6. You got to take, and now he's got the open file. This is a backwards pawn. We'll get into pawn weaknesses at some point too. And basically here, like, black is super happy. You do not want to take on f5. So just to recap real quick, here, if knight e4, sorry, castle, knight e4, knight d2, let's say c, ooh. That's tricky, because here if you go c5, they go c5, you cannot go c3. So here probably you want to go queen e2 first. Let's say c5, c3, not take on c3. Castle, and now we would go knight d2. Let's say knight c6 for example, and now we can try to take this guy. Take here, we can't go knight g5 because the bishop, but we can go knight e5, and eventually we're going to try to win this pawn. So that's what you want to do against the bishop f5 variation, and also the outpost on e4 variation.